Welcome to today's Farm Life. I'm Doug Cunningham. Harvest is underway in South Dakota, and it's pretty evident as you start to see some of the stockpiles of grain pile up around the elevators of the region. I was curious about what it takes to move and handle that much grain. So I stopped here at Gavilon Grain in Kimball, South Dakota, talked to General Manager Todd Yeaton, and he says it's quite a project.
Math-wise, this harvest is the 35th harvest that I've been involved in. Aside from growing up, in a family operation. The first harvest that we had gone through, if we would dump 100 trucks a day and do 30,000 bushels in a day, it was a big day. And facilities now, these high-speed, large facilities, consistently will do, between 200 to 300 to 400 trucks a day in the gut slaughter harvest, depending on the commodity and the flow. So, and that gets to be with most of the trucks being, on average, close to 1,000 bushel anymore with the additional axles and double trailers and that. We're seeing a huge amount of volume of grain, and that all falls into with the harvest equipment. You see 2 and 3 combines in the field with the large heads and grain carts and all that, and how things have evolved in just a very relatively short period of time.
According to Yeaton, the size of the ground pile varies from year to year. It all depends on the yield, and this year, he said, surprisingly, the yields have been pretty good.
Well, we're seeing generally yield-wise is as expected to maybe better. That started out with the wheat crop this summer. A lot of guys hayed their wheat, and they didn't think it was going to amount to much, and ended up being one of the better wheat crops they've had in a few years, especially quality-wise. The last couple of years were with the wet weather, we had some vomitoxin issues, falling number issues, and we've avoided that this year to see a nice quality crop that yielded probably 10 to 15% better than what they thought it would. And I think on the corn, it's too early for us to tell right now. We see in some areas where it was extremely dry, and depending on the crop rotation, where it's been pretty disappointing. However, there's some spots that have been within expectations. Soybeans have been, if the guys were thinking they were going to get 30 bushel, they're getting 35. And some are seeing better than that, but we have seen the same thing, depending on the rotation, if they just happen to get that rain. So we've seen yield run anywhere from 15 in the teens, 15 bushel up to 55, 60. And that's talking field wise. Like it might only be a 40, 50, like a 40 or an 80 acre field that does a 60, but it's still 60 bushel.
According to Yeaton, moving a mountain of grain involves a lot of rail cars, and there's been some improvements in the upper Midwest in the rail system, and that has really helped.
Every train, they've gone from being single cars or box cars, in the 70s. In the mid 80s, they went to 26 and 27 car units. Then we went to 54 car units, and we've gone to 110. And now the standard in our area, and the Class 1 railroad that serves our area here, we've been seeing 115 to 116 car trains, and that equates out to be about 430 to 450,000 bushels per unit, depending on the commodity that you load. And in the Dakotas and in western Minnesota and in North Dakota, the majority of our grain flows to the Pacific Northwest export market. Obviously, there's domestic uses and there's domestic consumption. However, I'm talking on the export. When you see a train going down the tracks in our area, pretty good chance it's going to the West Coast.
According to Yeaton, the average consumer would be absolutely mind-blown by the sheer amount of grain that travels through some of these big facilities across the upper Midwest.
You take the shuttle loading facilities that are throughout, and in all reality, the ethanol plants that are here, the soybean processing plants that are here, and even the feed mills, with these that work with confinement livestock, you would be mind blown, in all honesty, at the amount of volume that goes through. There's There's places that, like, you go to these new bean plants that are being built, or these corn plants that are being built. They go through, Sioux City, Iowa is an example. There's 2 soybean crush plants there, and between the 2 plants, they go through over 125,000 bushels of soybeans every single day.
Now, Yeaton said in his lifetime he's seen a lot of changes in this whole industry. So I thought, why not? Let's look to the future. Where do you see this going in 5 years?
I've had this conversation more than once. I grew up south of Chamberlain, South Dakota, and here we sit. And never in my wildest imagination did I ever think or believe that we'd be sitting where, in Kimball, South Dakota, managing a large state-of-the-art shuttle facility, and handling, doing this. I mean, it's getting to be about 15, back 21, 22 years ago, there wasn't even a rail line here. It was gone. I mean, it was here, but it was not usable. It was on decline, and so things have evolved that much. So what's going to happen in 5 years? I don't know. As fast as technology changes, as fast as things go, as innovative as everyone is, the sky's the limit anymore on what the American farmer can do, and what agribusiness can do. I have no idea.
Todd Yeaton is the general manager here at the Gavilon Grain Company in Kimball, South Dakota. Agriculture really shines through this time of the year, especially when you start seeing some of those stockpiles of grain pile up at these elevators around the upper Midwest. Amazing, huh? How much of an effect we have on the world's economy. Agriculture shining through. Remember, feel good about what you do today, because what you do today is very, very important. Until next time, for today's Farm Life, I'm Doug Cunningham.